Welcome to Coffee and the Bull.
Hey guys. Mike and John with Coffee and the Bull having a weird night. Tonight's episode we're going to be called Burning Your Boxers.
Yes, the fight against toxic feminism.
Femininity.
Femininity.
One of them words. Tonight's episode we're going to be talking about a reference to the 1960s movement of feminism to burn your bras. So it's time to take back our masculinity and burn our boxers. Mike has a disclaimer.
Yeah, in typical Coffee and the Bull fashion, we are going to have to throw a disclaimer out there. The title of this episode is Burn Your Boxers. After speaking with our legal team, we're not talking about we're not talking about actually burning your boxers. If you do decide to burn your boxers, we're not referencing that you do that. So you cannot hold Coffee and the Bull liable. That being said, if you're not adequately trained in a cigarette lighter or a regular lighter, don't try burning your boxers. Take your boxers off before you burn them. Don't burn them inside your house. And if you do decide to burn them, make sure you have the fire department on standby should the boxer burning episode go out of control. So the last thing we want, and this is the world we live in. In the 60s, they didn't have to give a disclaimer.
Right.
But now, you've got everybody trying to make $1 over a lawsuit or whatever. So we prefer you metaphorically burn your boxers, not physically burn your boxers.
But if you have to burn them in a safe place.
And if you don't wear boxers, start wearing boxers and then burn them.
If you're a free baller, don't burn at all.
So, but no, we're going to talk about some funny stuff, and some of it's going to be kind of controversial. So, but it's one of the things where we're going to start. It's taking a different turn than what we normally do. We're not trying to tug on feelings. We're not trying to discuss anything super heavy, but it's what the world has become, and how we're trying to navigate it.
Yeah, it ties into kind of where we're going with everything, because in reality, it's a reason for the decline of men being men,
right?
And ties into why we get to that point where we don't want to open up and express ourselves, because in the 1960s on, we got banned for it. We got bad-mouthed and treated less of a man because we did it. So big thing that I want to stress is you have key phrases that keep popping up, like toxic masculinity and submissive and dominant men and yada yada. The reality is there are people in every category of the categories, from male and female, cop and firefighter to accountant to whatever.
IT specialist.
Right. There are good people and bad people in the world. And they fall into every category. You can't just say, oh, that's a man, so he's got toxic masculinity. You're chasing the media narrative.
Well, what catches me with it is there's a lot of stuff that I don't understand. Like, it's not, I don't see how me sitting in a specific way, is too masculine, or me holding the door open for a lady who's walking into the gas station.
Right.
Somehow that makes me a misogynist because I think she can't open the door herself. No, I've already got the door open. I'm just being nice,
Right.
And then I think what it brings up where, you go from, hey, I can't open the door for you because, at that point, you're misconstruing me being nice for me being misogynistic, to now all of a sudden, it's, if I was in the woods with a man versus a bear, they choose the bear.
Right.
Well, you got mad at us for being nice.
Right.
And now you want us, and so it's like you're sending a lot of confusing
right. You're
dialogue.
sending mixed signals, and it's like, I'm just trying to hold a door at the gas station. I'm not trying to get in your pants, or the constant, if a man offers you help, the immediate, I have a boyfriend. I don't give a damn if you have a boyfriend. I didn't ask anything about your boyfriend.
Right.
And it steers us down a different road where, like, we talked about this morning with a Facebook post. Young lady gets on a rants and raves page, and she talks about how her car broke down, and the hood's up, and she's got a jumper box out because the battery won't start, and some guy just makes eye contact and keeps driving and passing by. Well, no shit. Like, you just told us a couple of months ago you'd choose a bear over us, so why would I want to get out and help you? And on top of it, the minute he would have rolled his window down, I'm like, you okay? I have a boyfriend. I don't want to deal with that.
Right.
You got the jump box. Clearly, you know there's something wrong with your car,
Right.
and you came prepared to handle that situation. Congratulations. You're now capable of doing everything a man can do.
So I think following in that same suit, because we got to address. Hey, there's a lot of different types of men out there,
Right.
and not everybody is going to be the one to sign up, for the military, go carry a rifle, go to Afghanistan or whatever. We're not all doing that,
Right.
and so we're not addressing masculinity as that being masculinity.
Right.
We're just talking about owning your space, and being, hey, if you've got a family, you're called on to be the protector. You're called on to be the provider. Do something in that category, and there's nothing wrong with, hey, getting in from work and you doing the cooking, you doing laundry, you doing
Right.
house chores. I mean, we're not saying go back to 1940s,
Right,
and
right.
like your grandparents were, and grandma stayed at home, grandpa went to work, and she better have a hot meal on the table,
Right.
or else by God, Ellie, you're getting we're not doing that. That's not what our stance is. What we're talking about is there's nothing wrong with, hey, holding the door open.
Right.
And or hey, you see somebody struggling on the side of the road, whether it be male or female, offering them some help. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't make you
Bless you.
it doesn't make you misogynistic or
You're
or this crappy person. Thank you.
Right.
It just makes you a good
good person.
dude.
Well, see, and that's where you and I conflict on that, because we get mad, when we got to go answer somebody who's got a flat tire, and you get there and you're like, how are you an adult in your 40s on the side of the road with a flat tire, and you don't have a jack, you don't have a lug wrench, and like the spare tire, you're not even sure where it is.
Right.
Right? But at the same time, you had all of these guys in the 80s and 90s who were Ted Bundy,
Right.
stranded motorists on the side of the road that were taking advantage of people. And now you want us men who know that that's a common thing, even in the movies. It's a female on the side of the road stranded. The guy stops. Next thing you know, he's robbed blind.
Well, even not necessarily going that far, but all of a sudden allegations can get made.
Oh, yeah.
And
In a heartbeat.
we see it all the time, and that's honestly, I don't stop for people on the side of the road. And if I'm just driving around in my personal vehicle, like, I'm not stopping for somebody on the side of the road.
Right.
Occasionally I will, but there's a lot that's got to go into it.
Like, you better have small kids, and the car
kids
better
in
not
the
be
car,
running.
and a lot of other stuff going on. But you got to be concerned now, because people can make false allegations, and then
110%.
now you're looking at you're arrested, and you've got this going on, and it'll be proven that, hey, they made false allegations, and nothing happens to them.
Right.
You
They
know?
walk away scot-free, and you're sitting in jail
Right.
trying to figure out, how am I going to defend myself, because I'm doing a good deed,
Right.
so I didn't think ahead enough, cognitively enough, to say I'm going to turn the recorder on my phone
Right.
to protect myself.
Right.
Because that's the society we live in now. Everybody's trying to get a quick buck and take advantage of the guy with the generousness.
Right.
And look, I'm not taking away from real victims who have actually been assaulted, who have actually been in those circumstances. I'm legitimately talking about the nice guy who is just doing what his daddy taught him to do. Pull over and help somebody in need. Lend a helping hand to your neighbor. Well, next thing you know, it's everybody's talking, and perception becomes reality. And that one nice statement you make where it's like, oh, you look nice in your shirt today, became, oh, I want to do dirty, inappropriate things with you. Now you gotta answer to a lawyer and defend
Or
yourself.
HR or something like that.
Right.
I know one instant that I had and this was years ago, where I know this I knew both the male and the female. And they had been dating for a while, and they had your typical argument, and it turned into where, and I'm not making this up, dude had video footage of it.
Right.
Where she is literally punching herself in the face.
Right.
And tells him, hey, I'm going to call it. She didn't see that he was recording. And so she's like, hey, I'm going to call the cops and tell them you beat me, and they're going to believe me. And sure as can be, she did.
Right.
She calls. The cops show up. They arrest him. Didn't ask him, hey, his side of the story or anything like that. Just take him to jail,
Right.
And so he spends 3 or 4 days in jail, gets out, goes to the office, says, hey, or the police station says, hey, I had this on recording. They wouldn't let me show it to him, and shows where she's purposely doing this, to be malicious. And obviously the charges, because it's fraudulent, the charges get dropped against him, but nothing happened to her for making false charges. And I don't know how we got to that point as a society where that is acceptable,
Exactly.
where hey, you can purposely lie to get somebody's freedom taken away.
Right.
And I don't care if he was wrong in the argument. At this point, like you were malicious to the point that you wanted to see his life get turned upside down,
Just
and
ruined.
right. And for what,
Right.
but on top of that, there's no consequences for being a absolute horrible person and being a liar.
Well-
and that's what scares me when you look at, hey, we're trying to raise kids
Right.
in this world. How are they going to navigate it? Because 20, 30 years ago when we were growing up, that you didn't do that. You didn't call the cops and lie on somebody. Or maybe you did. We just didn't know about it because we were too busy playing with Tonka toys.
Right.
But it's one of the things where the last 20 years there's been this big paradigm shift where guys just have to be silent, be in the background, and don't step on your woman's toes or or any of this other stuff. And any comments you make in the workplace can based on all these categories can be offensive and everything. And don't get me wrong, there are things that are offensive that does not need to be in the workplace. There are guys who take it too far. I get it.
Yep.
But it's every single thing, and you see it a lot specifically in areas where it's a male dominated field.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I was working in the refiners turning wrenches, we hated when a female would come work with us. And it's not that we didn't think she could do the job. We weren't sitting there trying oh, she just took a job from a hardworking man. Like we wasn't taking that approach. But it was, now we had to watch every single word we say. Yep. And if you ever been on commercial construction sites or honestly any type of job site where you've got a bunch of guys who are just sweating and physically working all day long, they're saying some outrageous stuff.
Yeah.
And it's they're making fun of the fat dude for being fat. They're making fun of the skinny dude for being skinny. They're making fun of the dumb dude because he doesn't get the jokes. Like there's no safe,
is ruthless.
There's no safe spot in it. And before everybody gets on here and says, hey, you should be able to go to work and make a paycheck without being ridiculed and all. No, it was an experience because everybody showed up for work the next day. You didn't throw a fit. If you're making fun of me, hey, you mess up. Let's see if I don't find a chance I can make fun of you. Or send you to go find some imaginary tool or whatever.
Standard man language, like how we communicate.
Right. You send a new guy to go get a pipe stretcher or something like that where he's never heard of that or it doesn't exist. And so it's all a big joke. But that's how you get through those rough days on the job site and stuff is through humor stuff. And so what we would run into is you get the female out there and every one of them, I'll give it to them. None of them that I worked with caused any issues.
Right.
They didn't go, running and trying to make a big deal out of something that it wasn't. They worked just as hard as we did. They didn't expect any slack to be given because it wasn't going to be. But so I don't have any bad experiences with that. But that was a thought process on the job sites was like, hey, you got to be careful because everybody knew somebody who had been fired.
Right.
For making a comment to somebody or making a comment in the presence of somebody and I understand the concept behind it. Don't get me wrong, and I don't think that you should be ridiculed to the point that you don't feel safe
or
comfortable. By all means I get that, but at the same time, if it's a joke, we should have the common sense to know it's a joke.
Right.
Like in the 60s, they said, "Hey, burn your bra." You didn't have a bunch of women, lighting their clothes on fire while they're wearing it.
Right.
It's that type of stupidity because everybody, in the beginning, everybody's like, "Why is he giving a disclaimer saying don't burn your boxers while you're wearing them?" Because that's the world we live in now. We take everything where we don't use our brains anymore. Or we're not allowed to use our brains because lawyers get in and everything becomes this big lawsuit. And it just becomes this big joke, that we've got to try to navigate.
Right.
And so it's a different world. I don't know that our parents could navigate, being a younger adult in today's world.
Right,
You know,
right.
because I know the things that I've heard my dad say, and my dad was relatively refined in what he talked about. You know, as I was growing up. But it's a different world now. I think you would get a lot of your older people would not enjoy being a
Oh,
young
yeah.
adult
Yeah.
in today's world.
And that's where society takes it. I mean, like, I don't know if we've ever discussed it, but when I was in the military, I was accused of misconduct, and it took me having to film the individual admitting that they had made all of it up. But at that point, the damage had been done.
Right.
But to save my own ass, and thank you to the lieutenant that was investigating it, because I brought him the video and he distributed it to everybody in the battalion.
Right.
Because he knew at that point, as a enlisted person, an NCO that I was, in charge of what I was, an allegation of misconduct with somebody's wife, especially in the military, you want to talk about you're dead to the world.
Right,
Like,
right.
everybody views
You cross
you.
a barrier you're not supposed to cross.
Oh yeah, everyone views you as the biggest piece of dirt on planet Earth, and it took filming this broad, admitting that everything was a lie because she was mad at me for not giving her her husband's property. What nobody took into account was that I had a document that the husband was like, "No, I don't want her to have anything. We're getting a divorce." Now he's an idiot and he stayed with her afterwards, but that's the type of allegations that we have. And I was just glad I was getting out because that stigma follows you. You know,
Right.
if I'd have stayed in the military and gone to a different base or whatever,
Even though it was proven wrong.
proven wrong. 100% proven false. Like, she came in, especially when they called her in afterwards. They were like, "Are you still, you still want to push forward with it?" She was like, "Oh, absolutely." So even though she'd admitted to me that she'd made it all up, they brought her in to basically discuss, hey, we're going to close this out. But they were like, do you still want to move forward with it? She was like, "Oh, absolutely. I want to move forward with the charges, and, he should be busted down and da-da-da-da." And he played her the video, and he was like, "So again, do you want to move forward or not?" And she was like, "No, I'm good." Nothing happens to her.
Right.
I'm looking at, you could possibly get up to a court martial for conduct unbecoming. I mean, there's a slew of things they could have hit you with, and I'm sitting here going, nothing, nothing at all, and you feel cheated because your entire namesake is about to be destroyed.
Right.
And people that looked at you like, they're ride or die, go to combat, kill and die for each other, are like, no, you try to get with people's wives when they're downrange. Like, no, I don't want anything to do with you. And you're like, proved it wrong. Save the video.
Right.
You just want to watch it. So it's a double standard that we have to survive with, not live with, because you're not living. You have to survive with it, and we see it in the TikToks all the time where the chick is on there talking about, "Oh, I don't want a short guy, or I don't want a guy who's, this old or this young.
Or he's gonna make X amount of money.
X amount of money or whatever." And it's like, okay, well, hop on the scale. We're gonna weigh your or we're gonna measure your waist, or what do you bring to the table? And it's not a fair balance. We're getting the short end of the stick. But you can't say anything because now you're a misogynistic, egotistical, toxic masculinity,
Right.
BS. And it's like, screw it. Take the bear then.
Right.
Head to the woods.
Right, and that's I always found that concept because for those of you who because I know we do have a part of our audience is a bunch of older people. Some of them are in their 50s or 60s.
Right.
There was this concept or this question that had been posed across social media that says, hey, if you're and they ask women this,
Right.
Younger women this, that hey, if you were walking in the woods, would you rather come across a man or a bear?
Right. Lost in the woods.
Lost in the woods. Yeah, sorry. Lost in the woods. Would you rather come across a man or a bear? And the amount of just ridiculousness,
Right.
was I'd rather come across a bear because at least then everybody would even though he's going to eat me, he's going to maul my body to death or
Right.
whatever. At least then I'll be taken serious or whatever. No, you'll be dead.
Right.
Like
Right.
in saying that, I don't understand where this misconception that all guys are bad
Right.
come from, because also I'm willing to bet if you go to those exact same women that they ask those questions to, they've all got boyfriends You know, even to this day, they probably, I would say majority of them, like vast majority of them, probably have boyfriends. Probably have been in several relationships because I'm willing to bet they're on the toxic spectrum.
Right.
But it's like, there's this idea that, all guys, if you happen to find this guy in the woods or whatever, that he's got ill intentions or whatever, all this other crap.
Don't get me wrong. A random dude in the woods is kind of suspicious. But.
Yeah, so.
Could be part of the search party looking for your dumbass that got lost in the
He
woods.
might be trying to get away from somebody, or he might have a toxic female at the house.
Right,
He's like,
right.
Nope,
He's like, I'm going to the
today's
woods.
the day. I'd rather live with the
Solitude.
mosquitoes.
Right.
And so it's one of them things where I think I can't wrap my head around how dumb those answers are.
Right.
Because it's like, hey, I would rather, because I've yet to see anybody except for the movie The Revenant, which honestly I think if they watch that movie, maybe they don't want a bear anymore because Leo didn't do so well with it.
Leo gets tore up by that bear.
And so it's like I've never seen anybody, like a video of somebody walk up and and see a bear and be like, oh, there's a bear. I'm so happy I saw this bear. No, it's immediately, hey, start backing up. They got bear spray, or
big as possible.
Or you wish you had this big gun or something like that. No, you watch some of these Survivor shows.
Right.
We went on a kind of a little binge of, like, I forget the names of one of them. I think it's Alone and some other stuff where all these people go out in the woods and they just live alone, or they survive as long as they can with almost nothing. And I forget exactly where they were, but it was like, bears were a legit issue or whatever. And and you had search parties going out and all this other stuff. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, I don't know, like, I didn't see, I think if there was a guy walking across the woods, they'd be like, hey, where'd that guy come from? I'm supposed to be over here alone, not,
Right.
When they see a bear, all of a sudden it's got your attention, like it's obviously going to be a safety issue, know?
One of the dumbest responses I saw was somebody going, there is a higher probability of being SA'd by a man in the woods than the bear. And my only thought was, well, no shit. Because the number of
bears aren't attracted to females.
Right. The number of bears SAing women.
I've never seen a bear be charged with,
right.
an assault like that,
And that's the part that killed me, is it's like, well, no kidding. Of course the bear's not going to do it. He's going to eat you.
Yeah. But look, let's start, then you can be like, well, if you look at the statistic of how many men have eaten women in the woods versus how many women, or how many bears have eaten women.
Right.
I'm sure the bear's in the lead on that category. So
we might have one or two.
There's
a few
not everybody's in the Donner Party,
Right.
And so I think it's just absolutely ridiculous, some of the stuff that comes up, and I don't think it would have been entertained, back in the 60s when they were having the feminist movement. And I want to stress, Coffee&theBull stance is, hey, we believe women should have the same rights as men, by all means.
110%.
If there's not a category where I'm like, nope, that's a man's category. He's the only one that could do that. Women don't need to vote, don't need to have property. They need to stay home, stay in the kitchen.
Right.
I'm not that guy, like I do the cooking in my house. I like to cook, which means I also do a majority of the dishes. My wife, she's busy doing other stuff. She raises her kid, does the homework.
Phenomenal baker.
Yeah. So
Mike didn't bring me the cookies.
I did not. She did make cookies for you, and I forgot to bring them.
Specifically.
Yeah.
Specifically.
So they're pretty good too.
I know.
But anyway, but no, I don't like in our house. We don't fall into your traditional gender roles, for lack of a better term. Like not once have I ever been like, hey, you're doing the cooking tonight, woman. And then go sit down and bring me my paper and bring me a or whatever. Like she'd probably beat me up, but it's one of the things where I'm fine with the initial movement of the feminist movement,
Right. No, I agree.
But
with
somehow
that 100%.
somehow it just become this ridiculous thing that it is now.
Right.
I
think it falls back into that whole, you get an inch, you take a mile bullshit, because it's like you went out for your equal rights, and 100%. I'm sure back then there were men that were like, no, but in reality it's like, no, not. The thought process behind men and women and intelligence and everything from then to now is completely different. We obviously see that there are a lot of intelligent women, just like there are a lot of intelligent men.
I'm going to, if I can interrupt you, I'm going to just flat out say, and I'm saying this because I know that we have roughly 47% of our audience is females.
Right.
There's no doubt in my mind the female species because they're kind of different than we are. I would say the females are definitely smarter than we are.
Right.
You know, I'll give them on the intellectual side of things. Like we're definitely still dragging our knuckles because
Right.
I know that I do some dumb stuff, and my wife is like, hey, that was kind of dumb. You know, and I'll in hindsight, yes. You know,
I don't have an argument for your opinion,
right?
Because you're right, but I enjoy doing the dumb
So I will
thing.
give them that because, and also, you know, in the same sense, not once did anybody go when they were having the bra burning movement say, hey, we need to think about this. You know, because even back when, you know, a lot of men looked at women as being second class citizens. Nobody goes, hey, we need to send this out because we don't want a bunch of women lighting themselves on fire. You know,
Right.
don't do this. You know, whereas immediately when I told you, hey, we need to do a disclaimer, not once you go, no, Mike. Like
No. Like,
I know friends who would be like, woohoo, and then,
Right,
you know,
right.
And so like,
live on
all
Facebook.
joking aside, you know, I definitely think, you know, that men do a lot of dumber things, and I think that's, you know, it's just part of who we are. You get guys together, you know, and it's kind of died out, honestly. You know, I remember growing up, and you would, you know, some of my best friends I got in fist fights with. You know, my brothers I got in fist fights with.
All the
you
time.
know, and you know, we didn't hate each other for it. It was just, you know, we were mad, we let out steam.
And it's over.
Not immediately, but, you know, a couple
Right.
minutes later, hey, we're back to, you know, playing whatever video game or whatever sports or, you know, whatever we were doing, and you can't do that anymore. You know, now you know, I was reading something where, like, if a kid makes a finger gun, you know, now all of a sudden, you know, he's getting suspended because it's zero tolerance. Like, I've never seen a finger gun shoot anybody.
Right.
You know, and so it's like, all right, the ignorance with some of this is just outrageous, and I don't know how our kids are going to navigate this world if it keeps going that way.
We went from men having this high value of the provider, the stability in your life, the protector in your life, to being so devalued that you have, and I'm not knocking the ladies that are out there on OnlyFans, but they're making anywhere between $5,000 to $15,000 a month on OnlyFans, but you have a boyfriend at home, and it's like, I don't see the old school in me doesn't see the way that works.
Right.
But you devalue men to the point where you don't need a man or anything else, yet you fail to realize that your money is coming from men, and most of them are not men that you would want to go out in public with.
Right.
And I'm a real person. I'm not going to sit here and say that everybody has beauty, because they don't. There are ugly people in the world. They're just not attractive to me. I'm sure they're attractive to somebody else. But that's the reality of it. You're selling your body for money. You know where I'm going with that.
So, you know, one thing that I find interesting is, and if you hop on Facebook or a lot of these things, you're going to see it a lot. Like, you got your rants and raves pages, and you know, if you don't have a rants and raves page in your community, I'm sure you got some community page wherever you're at, and you get it. I'm saying it, but before I get into this, I'm fine. I've got no problem helping people out. Like, you know, especially, you know, when I've fallen on hard times.
Yep.
I've helped people out in hard times. I've had people help me, so I get, you know, giving a helping hand. But there's this idea that, you know, somehow single mothers have it harder than other
Single
parents.
fathers, right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, like, I hop on Facebook, and it doesn't take maybe 15 minutes to come across a post, and you got somebody saying, hey, I'm a single mom, you know, had this going on and that going on, and, you know, just money's tight, you know, if you can help out, I appreciate it.
Right.
And there are so many of them who do it from a laziness or manipulative standpoint.
Right.
That there are legit single moms on there who left bad situations at home, and, you know, they're sitting there and they legit need help, but they get masked by the people who, you know, by women who take advantage of the heartstrings of society.
Right.
And, you know, they're probably the ones that were toxic in the relationship, where you got a guy who's saying, hey, I'd love to have my wife and my girlfriend and my kids back home, but, you know, she's being, you know, this evil person. So
Right.
so they're separated now, and somehow he's getting the blame for it. And
Right.
again, it's not every situation is the guy in the wrong. Not every situation is the guy in the right. You know, I'll give you both sides of that coin.
Yeah.
But I've yet to see a page or a post on Facebook where it's, hey, I'm a single guy. This happened, that happened, or whatever. He's expected to suck it up and move on.
Figure it out.
Figure it out. Feed the kids. If you don't feed,
Right.
if you don't get them Christmas presents, you're a piece of crap dad. It's just I don't. There's no. If equal rights was the goal of that, I think we missed it.
100%.
By a little, by in some categories, because I've got, again, we work in a male dominated field, and there are women who work there. And not once have I ever heard of a female applying for one of the positions in our department and her be denied just because she's a female. There may be history issues, and the same thing with guys. There are guys who could be great because of something in their background. They may not get the opportunity or whatever. But I've worked in construction. I've worked in the refineries. I've worked in office settings. I've worked in law enforcement. I worked in doing landscaping. I've had women in every one of those fields, and they've all done really, really well. Or the ones that I've worked with done really, really well. So I'm not saying that, hey, there's something that they can't do, and I've yet to honestly see the whole glass ceiling thing. Women make less than men, and
Right. Well,
not once have I ever seen that.
It's proven inconsistent.
But it's these people get their news off of these trending topics,
Yes.
and rather than doing research, they just remain ignorant. And so somehow you've got to combat the stupidity of society.
Well, it's easier to say the Facebook meme or the TikTok video is more accurate because I'm going to trust this guy to go get their statistic or their facts. And I agree with you 100%. We have missed the mark on equality because if it was true and the court systems, if they truly believed that they were doing what was best for the children, custody would be established before child support.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a firm believer that you can't sit here and tell me that it's more important to get the child financially stable than to make sure that the child has both parents in their lives. Because I'm sorry, it's a proven fact. It has been statistically proven, number one, that children raised by single fathers are better off than children raised by single mothers. It's a proven study in fact on 3 different college levels. It's been a proven fact that children having both parents in their lives do better off than children with one or the other, male or female, mom or dad. And you're asking a man, because rarely does a man receive child support. It's so uncommon that if a man walks out and goes, yeah, I got child support, every other dude in that courtroom goes, oh shit. Because it's not common.
Right.
But you expect a man to give you 20% of his available income. On top of the fact that he's got to provide his own home, he's got to provide everything else he's got to provide for the child when the child's with him. That's even if he's got 50-50 custody. He's still got to give 20% of his available income to the other individual. And when they base the math on how they equate who's going to pay and how much you're going to pay and everything else, it's based on the amount of income the father is capable of making. Not what he actually makes.
Right.
What he's capable of making. And then when they look at the mom, they go, well, this is what you actually make, and if we're off by $1 or $2, it's okay. And it's a statistical, proven screw over for the dads. It's literally geared against the father.
Right.
And it's why men fight so hard not to get a divorce.
Right. And this is where I don't have a lot of experience in this. Obviously,
Right.
Me and my wife got married. We've stayed married for 15 years now. As of right now, there's no end in sight. So I haven't had to go through that. But I work with guys who I look at. They're sitting there and they're choosing between whether they're going to eat lunch that day or get some cigarettes or nicotine.
Right.
And they're like, I'm going with nicotine because it's the only thing that calms them down.
Right.
They'd rather not eat because they don't have the money to eat.
Right.
They're getting just stripped of what they're working for.
Yeah.
And by all means, hey, look, if like we've talked about, if you got a relationship with a woman and she's a stay-at-home mom and y'all agreed on that, and for 10 years you haven't allowed her to go. I say you haven't allowed. She hasn't gone to work because that was the agreement y'all had. You're making good money, and she goes out. Hey, I understand
The alimony
the alimony aspect of it
for a period of time.
But I know some guys who they've had to pay it for 10, 20 years, and or until she gets married, and so she'll be in a relationship and just not get married,
Right.
or not get remarried
Right.
because she doesn't want to lose that money, and so it becomes, it's I don't understand, like it's obviously foolish.
Yeah.
But there's no solution for it, or nobody's trying to change it, and so I don't understand that, especially when it's so rampant. Like it doesn't.
Yeah.
If you talk to 15 guys, you'll come across one that's paying child support, one that's paying alimony, one that's lost everything, and I'm not just talking about just guys who have sadistic tendencies or anything like that. Like
Infidelity issues, stuff like that,
talking.
yeah.
I'm talking about legit guys who were doing what they could,
Right.
and they just missed the mark because they don't know how to communicate right, or they were too busy, and she's going to yoga class and hooked up with some yoga teacher or whatever.
And that's where I disagree, and not necessarily what you're saying, because I agree with you, but it's not a miss the mark as in a man failed, right? And obviously I'm not talking about every relationship. Like we're agreeing that there are relationships and there are men who suck. That just is what it is. There are people in the world, men and women, that are just shitty people. But you have a wife. Your wife is not an unattractive woman. Your wife doesn't make herself available for somebody to come into her life and take her away from you. So if you're in a relationship and your significant other steps out on you, it's because your significant other's a piece of shit. Because they have to open that door or leave that door open for someone to step in. It's the same in your boat. I know, and I've said this before to many people that say things about you or think that you're an attractive man or stocky.
It happens.
She was wrong. You don't open the door to let them step into your marriage or to pull you away from it. And so I don't I don't believe that a significant other, and I'm saying significant other because it's man and woman, both sides of the spectrum cheat. There is no such thing as it's your fault I cheated on you.
Mm-hmm.
That's horseshit. That is a cop-out excuse to make you feel worse about the fact that not only is your relationship ending, they're a cheater, but now they're adding more blame to you. That is the textbook of the definition of narcissist, because it's legit. Like you can't tell me that I did anything in a relationship to deserve being cheated on. Especially when you go back and you check that Rolodex, which is, for those of you that don't know, an old school thing. And I go, okay, I came home right after work. I didn't gamble. I didn't drink. I didn't do drugs. I never put my hands on you. Never said your name out of context. And I did everything as a husband and a provider that I am obligated to do. I followed it to a T, was textbook the best. The worst you could ever say is I might have left a soda can or a piece of trash or something, something silly. But the fact that you stepped out 100 times, that says you're a piece of shit, not me.
So let's re-gear it for a minute.
I apologize. I went on a tirade
before
there
you go too
moment.
far down a tirade. For following the concept of, hey, burn your boxers.
Right.
For let's say there's a guy's riding home from work, and he's like, okay, what does that mean?
Burn your boxers?
Burn your boxers. For what would you say would be your advice to them is, how to change his life so that he does become more valuable, or just more comfortable in his own skin. Let's go with that.
Yeah.
Where just to build confidence. Is there something you would say that you would offer to him?
Ask a question. And what I mean by ask a question is, if I want you to take back your manhood. That's what I mean by burn your boxers. I want you to take back being a man. Take your son and teach him how to change a tire. My kids, when they get in the truck. Now, granted, I tell everybody, I give my kids a little bit more freedom than most people give their 8 and 6-year-old. My son opens my truck door for my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I make him do it. I make him open the door for her. I don't care if he's riding in the front seat or she is. He opens that door for her. Because I want him to open the door for females.
Right.
My daughter knows to stand at that door until he opens it. That is the chivalry that I am trying to instill in my children, because I don't want my daughter to be with somebody who's not going to take the time to open the door for her. Now, granted, you make 15 years of marriage, you can open your own damn door. Like, I do enough for you.
Yeah, Brittany.
Yeah. I love you, Brittany. Please keep baking for me, even though Mike doesn't bring them to me. But I want her to know that the right way to be treated is that a man's going to open the door for her. I don't want my daughter under the context, and this is the new thing that I've noticed coming out, is they talk about, well, if he buys you dinner or takes you to dinner, who's supposed to pay or whatever, and the argument that most women give is, well, he's supposed to pay, and most men argue back, all right, well, then you have to have sex with him. Well, no, I don't want to do that. Well, then why should he have to pay? You're saying that your time is more valuable than his money. But at the same time, I take my daughter to dinner. Obviously, I pay for dinner.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know that I would go. I agree with society on that aspect.
No,
that just because as a guy, you take a girl out to a date. It's hey, I want to spend time with you.
Right.
And so I don't condone the hey, I'll pay, but you got to do this sexual act or whatever.
Right.
So I'm not going to go down that road with the way society is. But I want to teach my son that, hey, if I'm going to ask her to go on a date,
exactly,
I should pay.
Exactly, and that's the lesson that.
But
it's
also with the same thing where if she's saying, hey, let's go to a movie or whatever, she's the one that initiated that.
Exactly.
That goes both ways. There's times in our dating life that my wife paid it. And she wanted to do something nice. I've got no issue with that. But also it was, if I could not afford to go on the date, I would say, hey, look, I'm sorry, I can't right now. I've got to go to work, or got to do this or that, or hey, we'll find something else. Hey, let's cook at the apartment or whatever,
Right.
And so it's like, I want to teach my son that, hey, chivalry's not dead, and that you can be a nice person.
We just got to modify it so that you don't expect something,
right?
But at the same time, you're going about it the right way. Because even you and I, when we're at work, and you're like, "Hey, let's go here," I know I can look at you like, "I don't have that in the budget," and you will tell me, "I got it. Let's go,"
right.
Or vice versa. And I mean, granted, I don't think we've ever said we don't have it in the budget, but I know that if you invite me to Rotolo's,
right,
you're paying for Rotolo's, or vice versa, or you'll get mad at me because I pay for all of it and don't let you pay. But that's a thing that you and I have done forever. That's the same lesson I'm teaching my kids. If you're invited to go somewhere, I don't expect you to anticipate paying for it. And that's what I want my daughter to understand. And you're not expected to have to give sexual favors. You're not expected to. I don't want my son to think because he invited a girl out, he's going to get anything at the end of it. You're getting the time. The time is the most valuable thing we have, because that doesn't stop until you're dead.
Right. I think I want to teach, and that's one, it's kind of a weird concept, because I've seen different things on Facebook and TikTok and stuff like that now, where like schools have zero tolerances for kids fighting or whatever, and I get it. I understand the premise of it. I think it's something that works great in theory. I don't think it should. I look at it from the standpoint that if my son wears glasses,
right?
I wore glasses when I was a kid. I know how ruthless kids can be. For something as simple as a kid wearing glasses, or a kid not wearing the right name brand shoes, or coming from a poor family. So I get that bullies exist, and somehow we took that, hey, if you're involved in a fight, then you get suspended too. No, I don't think that's the case. If a kid goes up to my kid and starts punching him in the face because he's got glasses or whatever, and my son stands up for himself, he shouldn't be suspended for that.
Correct.
And I watched one guy, he made a video, and honestly I agree with it, where the dad was busy, dad was working, he comes home, and the mom is telling him, talking to the son, saying, hey, look, I'll tell him about it or whatever. And the dad's like, tell me what? And he's like, well, Junior got in a fight today at school or whatever. And he gets the details, and come to find out, Junior had stood up, he stood up for himself against the bully. And the dad took and, was like, starts tallying up some stuff or whatever. And mom's like, what's going on? He goes, grab your fishing gear, let's go. And they go on like they're planning on going like this fishing trip. He goes, you stood up to a bully. I'm rewarding that. Like, you're not in trouble.
100%.
And so like, I think society has missed it where, you get zero tolerance policies and things like that. I want my son to have, I don't want to say violent tendencies, but the ability to be violent, but but also control it and it not be the everyday reaction,
Right. So before we wrap this up, I'm going to pose a question to you. At what juncture did we go from society saying men should not hit women to when it's socially acceptable to hit a woman?
What do you mean?
So, I want you to think about your son. He's 20, 21 years old, in a relationship with an abusive female. Is it okay for him to defend himself?
I think so long as it's in defense,
Right.
and that's what I want to stress, because I was taught, hey, you don't put your hands on a female, and I don't, within obviously different confines of work and all this other stuff,
Right,
but
right.
inside the house, I don't put my hands on my wife,
Right.
and she hasn't put me in a spot where I felt like I needed to defend myself against her or
Right.
anything like that. So it's a mutual thing, but in the same sense that I agree that men shouldn't hit women, and women shouldn't hit men a majority of the time.
Yeah.
There are times where, hey, if you're going to create a threatening situation,
Right.
And I say this, where if I go home and I back my wife into a corner and I make it to where she feels that she is in fear for her safety, that she's got to grab the baseball bat in the corner or whatever and hit me with it so that she can get away and get safe.
Right.
She's, in my mind, she's justified for doing what she needed to do to get away from me.
110%.
Flip the roles in that, and I believe the same thought process applies.
Yes.
I don't feel that women should be given any extra protection than men, but also don't think just because they're a woman. I think it should be across. It's not a hard concept. Hey, don't put your hands on somebody.
Exactly.
But at the same time, it's also not a hard concept. Hey, if I can joke around with guys, the same stuff that I joke around with guys about, I should be able to joke around with females about.
Right.
And so, but just because, at work, just because a female's present doesn't mean the conversation should change. If it's changing, it shouldn't be a conversation that's being had.
Right. 100% agree with that.
And so that's where I'd go with that. So.
No, I bring that up because I know that's been a spot of contention, at work and in personal lives and everything else, because I teach my son, like, you don't put your hands on a woman. However, you need to understand, if you're in a predicament where you can't get out,
Right.
and that's the only way to make it to the door and get away from it, you get away from it. But you do it enough to get away.
Right.
You don't do it enough to inflict bodily harm and injury. And you make it very clear when you're asked about it, I didn't do it to hurt her or hurt them. I did it to get away because they were going to hurt me. Because I'll be damned if my kid's going to be, grow up and be in an abusive relationship where some woman is beating the tar out of him and he can't defend himself.
Right.
Because that's what we're seeing more and more now.
Well, you see a bunch of that, and I think the easiest way for a guy to just be a strong guy, and not fall into the toxic masculinity or this or that, and just be a grown man, for lack of a better term. You're not an alpha male or this and that. You're just a dude. Is, hey, you got a job, go to your job. Don't hey, I got the sniffles today, so I'm calling into work. Like I had one dude one time. We were at work, and he called me. He's like, hey, I've been sneezing. I think it was sneezing and something else. I was like, bro, go get to the store, get you some medicine, and get back to work. Like we're not going home because you sneezed.
Right.
And so it's like, operate under the idea that, hey, I have a job to do. I need to do my job. Whether that's being a cop or being a firefighter, being in the military, or being a mechanic, being an accountant, an insurance salesman, car salesman, or whatever. That's across the board. You have an obligation.
Yeah.
And to stand on your own 2 feet. In my opinion, a grown man should be able to stand on his own 2 feet. So that's what I want to teach my son. Hey, have a job and do your job.
Right.
If you have a family or you have people you're responsible for, be responsible for them. Don't rely on other people for it. If something was to come up and you've got to step between them and the threat, you handle what you need to.
Right.
And I think that and there's nothing. Also, the other part of it is just be a decent person. Like, it's not hard. Hey, if you see somebody, the single or the mom who's walking in with 2 babies on her hip, grab the door for her. It's not that hard,
Right.
Take a couple steps extra, get the buggy out of her way or something like that. There's nothing wrong with being and then walk away.
Yeah.
Don't expect a thank you. Don't expect anything like that. Just walk away. And if she wants to be mean about it, let her be mean. You can't make, like we talk about at work all the time. You can't make somebody be nice.
Exactly.
But doesn't mean you can't be nice.
Facts.
So guys, that's going to wrap up our episode today. I want to say thank y'all for taking a moment and listen to us. Just honestly, just spitball ideas back and forth.
Yeah.
It's some of it's controversial topics. And it's not we're not taking stances to generate likes or whatever. It's just taking stances of, hey, this is the foolishness of the world, and we're trying to combat some of that. So,
what's caused us to lose our way,
right,
as men,
right,
and why some of us respond and react the way that we do in some of these situations, like why we're not going to stop to help the female.
Right.
I don't want to be badmouthed or treated like shit because I stopped to help somebody, because that's how I'm raised to do it, and society has changed on us. It all ties into our mental health and what we have to do to protect ourselves, both mentally and our actual physical freedom.
right.
Because you don't know what kind of claim could come from the things that you stop to do in a good deed that ends up becoming the biggest regret of your life.
Right.
So finish
So
somebody.
thank y'all for taking a moment and watching or listening to this episode. Whatever platform you're on. I do want to, hey, if you liked it, let us know. If you don't like it, let us know. If there's something you disagree with, we're all about conversation. That's the purpose of this whole podcast.
100%.
Is just having a conversation back and forth. We don't have all the answers. You don't have all the answers. So it's if you want to reach out to us, shoot us an email. It's coffeeandthebull@yahoo.com. We're more than happy to hear from you, and we'll engage with you. We're not going to do a live on the air thing because we find that that's probably not the best route for us.
Yeah.
But I've got no problem putting your thoughts on the episode and discussing why we agree or don't disagree.
Right.
You may bring something else to the table. So. For everybody else, if you liked it, hit the like, subscribe, share, comment button, follow, all those podcast buttons and everything. That does show our effectiveness. We've been very happy because every single day we go up just a little bit more. Still haven't hit viral or anything like that, not necessarily expecting to. But let us know you're watching. If you're just doing the kind of hanging out in the shadows. Let us know. Shoot us an email. Say, hey, look, I haven't liked it, haven't subscribed, haven't done any of that other stuff, but I do like what y'all doing or don't like what you're doing, so I'm not going to listen anymore. Just let us know one way or the other, guys. That's all we're asking. So for now, unless you've got something else.
Lot of two. See what I did there? I went,
No.
Stupid.